Aloha class. All right, here we go. Remember, let's grind these days up. Let's fire after these free response questions and let's get great at them. Now, in this little video, there's some related rates. It doesn't always come up in free response questions, so I found some that were related rates. And then I'm also sprinkling in some randos, okay, some random AP questions that, hey, when we see it, it can only help. Remember, I challenge you bet that by the time we get to this video, you guys should be pausing, trying these on your own, see where you stand, okay? So here we go. We got a cylinder, okay? A cylinder barrel with a diameter of 2 feet. It's a diameter of 2, it's a radius of 1. As shown in the figure above, the water drains out through a valve, not shown at the bottom. The rate of change of the height of the water in the barrel with respect to time is modeled by dHdt equals negative 1 over 10 square root of h. Now remember, they don't always tell you, they won't always say like negative or positive. Remember, if it's a decreasing rate, it's always represented by a negative. Increasing rate, always represented by a positive, okay? They also give us the volume of a cylinder to be V equals pi r squared h, okay? Now I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so we can get after it. Part A, find the rate of change of the volume of the water in the barrel with respect to time when the height of the water is 4 feet. So what are we trying to find here, okay? We're trying to find the rate of change of the volume with respect to time when the height is equal to 4. So we're trying to find dV dt equals this. Now, they give us that V equals pi r squared h. Now, if you remember when we did these problems, if I took the derivative of this right here, which I do want to do, but if I take the derivative, I have to do the product rule because I have a r squared times h, multiple variables. So if you remember when we were doing related rates, our number one job was to make an equation that eliminated as many variables as possible. Remember, when it was a cone, we used similar figures, the liquid in the cone versus the actual cone. In a cylinder, the really cool thing about a cylinder is that the height changes in regards to the liquid to the actual cylinder, but the radius or the diameter of the cylinder and the liquid are always the same. So when they ask us to find the rate of change of the volume of the water, guess what? I can use R equals 1. Remember, you're allowed to use anything that never ever changes. So I'm going to change this to V equals pi 1 squared h. Oh, nice and easy, Japanesey. And then all I got to do now is find the derivative, which would be pi dh dt. And then all I got to do is plug and chug, right? So now I'm going to plug in a 4 for h, but there's nowhere to plug in the 4. Yes, there is. Okay, and remember, it's just pi dh dt, which would be this, square root of 4. Ooh, am I doing that right? Yes, I am. So that'd be what? Negative 1/5 pi. Booyah, done. It does ask for units. Units are as easy as this. The top is volume, so that would be cubic feet. The bottom is, what is it, time, and time is measured in, where is it, seconds. So there you go, there's your units, problem done. That was worth 2 points, okay, 1 for that derivative and 1 for the answer with the units. So please do not forget the units. Remember, it's almost always helpful to put units, because if you do put units and your units are wrong, you are not penalized unless they ask you for units. All right, part B. When the height of the water is 3 feet, h is equal to 3, is the rate of change of height is dh dt increasing or decreasing? Okay, what's interesting about this? They ask if the rate, if this is increasing or decreasing. Well, we want to know if the derivative is increasing or decreasing. Hopefully that's a hint that you have to find the second derivative. And the second derivative, right, that would be h to the 1/2. I would drop that 1/2 and I would get this, but I better remember to chain it. So if I continue this, I get 1/20 h to the, that'd be like 1 over the square root of h. Now, why am I writing it like that? Because when I substitute in my dh dt, I get this. And then you notice that those guys cancel out. So I don't even have to plug in that 3. I notice that they cancel out right there, and I get 1 over 200. And then I just have to answer the question. since the second derivative, right, since the second derivative is greater than 0, make sure you guys write this out. I know I'm doing these quick because I don't want these videos to last too long, but you guys make sure you're writing down great notes. Okay, the reasoning for this is that the rate would be increasing because the second derivative is positive. Okay, make sure you write that down. And you want to make sure you say that it is increasing when the height of the liquid is at 3 feet. All right, C, at time t equals 0 seconds, the height of the water is 5 feet. That's like an initial condition. Oh, use the separating of variables to find h. Okay, so how about that? They're linking a little related rates with a little second derivative with a little separate and integrate, right? So here we go. That's h to the 1/2. So I'm going to divide by that, h to the 1/2. I'm going to get all the dh's on one side, all the t's on the other. Now remember, that's h to the negative 1/2. Which if I take that antiderivative, I'm going to add 1, which would give me 1/2. I'm going to divide by 1/2 or multiply by the reciprocal and get 2. On this side over here, booyah, booyah, a C came up. What happens when a C comes up? I find it, right? I find it. I find my C right now by plugging a 0 in for T and a 5 in for H, and I get that for my C. Remember, when I find my C, I come back here and I plug it in. I should have said for sure on this one, but I hope you guys hit pause to see how you stand. I'm going to divide by 2. When I divide by 2, I get this plus radical 5, and then I'm going to square both sides. And when I square both sides, I just get this as my answer. Booyah! And that was worth 4 points, class. You got 4 points for doing that. That would be a 9 out of 9 if you were perfect. Here we go. They had some related rates. They had some separating of variables. Like I said, today, this lesson is going to have a little mix and match. Let's see how you guys do. But please challenge yourself. All right, we are going to do next 2016, number 5. Hit pause and let's see how you do. All right, here we go. This time we have a funnel. So, right, the funnel and the liquid that's in this funnel, they're definitely going to change here, right? If we're dealing with a related rates, but let's find out what we're dealing with. Okay, the inside of a funnel of a height is 10 inches. The inside of a funnel of height 10 inches. This is 10. Okay, the whole thing is 10. Okay, and it has cross sections that are circles, okay, and the figure above at height h, the radius of the funnel is given by obviously the funnel, right? It's going to vary depending on where you're at, what height you're at, or what radius you're at in terms of that circular cross section from 0 to 10. The units of r and h are in inches. Okay, find the average value of the radius of the funnel. Now, boy, am I hoping you guys hit a pause and you tried it on your own. But average value is just the integral, right, from 0 to 10 of the radius, okay, over the interval. So that's all you got to do for this one. Now, did they want to test your ability to do simple math on this one, okay? I would probably bring the 1 to the 20 out. And if I bring the 1 to the 20 out, there's already a 10 down there, that'd be 1 over 200, right? Integral 3 plus h squared dh, and I'm going to do it from 0 to 10. So it's going to be 1 over 200. The antiderivative of 3 is 3h. The antiderivative of h squared would be h to the third over 3. And I'm going to do it from 0 to 10. If I keep on going, it's 1 over 200. Plug in that 10. I get 30 plus 1,000 over 3, right? And then minus 0 plus 0. So my final answer, is going to be 30 over 200 plus 1,000 over 600, spling. That's a 3 over 20, spling, spling. That's a 10 over 6 or a 5 over 3. You could do some common denominators. And if you are good to go, you got to be good at some fractions there, right? But if you do it correctly, and my common denominator is 60, you get a 109 over 60. Booyah, bang. Hopefully you tried it on your own. Remember, if you're pressed for time, don't worry about simplifying. Leave it like that, and I bet you they would give you full credit on that AP exam. You got 3 points for getting the integral correct, 1 point for getting the antiderivative correct, and 1 point for getting the answer correct. Find the volume of the funnel. Well, how do I find the volume of anything here, especially when dealing with cross sections? And we just got done watching a video on area and volume, but it's the volume is equal to, remember, it's the integral from 0 to 10 of the area of one of those cross sections. That's it, right, class? That's all I would have to be able to do to get that bad boy right. So here we go. How do I? Now remember, I begged you guys that when you're doing these problems to do some side work, draw a picture of the area of one of your cross sections. And the area of one of my cross sections would be pi r squared. So I'm going to bring this pi all the way here on the outside, but then all I have to do is know what the radius is and square it. Booyah! So that's just going to be, oh my gosh, and they want me to do this by hand? What the what? Okay, so it's r squared. So r is 1 over 20, 3 plus h squared dh. What the heck? If I square that, I get 1 over 400. So I'm going to bring that all the way to the outside, right, class? And then it's going to, and then I'm going to have 3 plus h squared, which simplifies to 9 plus 6h plus h to the third, right? Dh, and then I have to find the antiderivative of all that. What the heck? Over 400. Okay, antiderivative would be 9h. Antiderivative would be, that'd be what? H to the third, h squared, so it'd be 3h squared. Or did I do that right? Oh no, that's squared and that's to the fourth. I knew there was a boo-boo. So if I did that correctly, it'd be 2h to the third power. And then my last one would be 1/5 h to the fifth. And then I've got to do that from 0 to 10. Oh my gosh. And you've got to do all of that by hand. Woo, plug in the 10, plug in the 0. You got to work it out. And if you do it all right, you get 2209 pi over 40. Holy moly. I only advise you to work through all of that if you have the time. Okay, that's going to be some work. And this is number 5. It's non-calculator, but boy, did they make sure you did a lot of work to get that, and it is worth a point. All right, you would have gotten the first 2 points for just the setup and the correct antiderivative. But if you wanted all 3 of those points, you had to work that all the way out. All right, here we go. Part C. The funnel contains liquid. So now it's got liquid. I knew we'd involve some related rates here somehow from the beginning. Okay, and it's draining from the bottom, which means it would be negative. At the instant when the height of the liquid is 3, so we're at h equals 3. The radius of the surface is decreasing at a rate of 1/5. See, here's where they throw a little twist in here, right? The radius of the liquid is decreasing. So that means dr dt is equal to negative 1/5. At this instant, what is the rate of change of the height of the liquid? So boom, I got to take the derivative of that bad boy. Now you guys can remember, I always encourage you, when it's easy to distribute before you take a derivative. Okay, now I'm going to take a derivative. I get dr dt equals 3 over 20 is 0. And then to take the derivative of this with respect to time, I'm going to drop that to h, and then it's going to be dh dt, because remember, it will change. And then to get the answer here, how about it? You plug in that, you plug in that. So I'm over here, sorry about the craziness. Negative 1/5 equals 1 over 10. You got a 3 there. dh dt, that's 3/10. If you multiply by the reciprocal, you get your dh dt, final answer, equal to negative 2/3. And once again, if they asked me for units, I don't think they do. But the height, h is on top. H is measured in, where is it? Inches. So that'd be inches, okay? And then the time is measured in seconds. So it'd be inches per second, okay? Give myself a mustache. All right, that is it with this one. That one would be worth 3 points Also, you got a point for remembering that that was a chain rule of DHDT. I just looked at my scores, but that would be Niners out of Niners. All right, what is your job? Your job is right now to let's do this 2018 and hit pause and let's see how you do. All right, here we go. Remember, I said that this is kind of related rates with the sprinkles of some randos. So this is kind of a random one. So I would definitely hit pause because we've been working on all of this stuff and let's see how you do. Okay, but it's one of these where I'm given a graph. Darn it, well, I need the graph to be able to do this. So let me hit pause. Hold on 1 second, you guys. Booyah! Got the graph right there in case we need it. It says find the average rate of change of f. Okay, average, ooh, it's not average value, average rate of change. So that'd be f of pi minus f of 0 all over pi minus 0. So they just wanted to know that you knew that that is exactly what it meant. And if you just plug in everything, you guys get, you get negative e to the pi minus 1 all over pi. Problem done. It was only worth a point, but they're just testing us there. You know, if that doesn't show up on a free response like it did right now, it will definitely show up in a multiple choice question, okay? What is the slope of the line tangent to the graph of f at x equals 3 pi over 2? So the slope means derivative. So what's the derivative of f? Well, that would be a product rule, right? You have a u and you have a v. So remember, it's u times the derivative of v, negative sine x, plus v, cosine x, times the derivative of u, which would be e to the x. You chain that x, which is just 1. You got a point if you got that correct. But now what am I going to do? I'm going to plug in a 3 pi over 2. And if I plug in a 3 pi over 2, you get e to the 3 pi over 2. And then sine of 3 pi over 2 is actually negative 1. So two negatives equal a positive, right? So you're just going to end up with 3 e to the 3 pi over 2 for that first piece. All right, let's do the second piece. Oh, cosine of 3 pi over 2 is just 0. So even though it ends up being 0 times 1, boom, that's your answer, and you got 2 points for that. So 1 for doing the derivative correct, 1 for being able to get the answer. Okay, now here I can guarantee you is a big one. Whenever it says find the absolute min. Remember, whenever it asks to find an absolute min, we have to find critical points. In order to find critical points, we have to find the derivative. Now, I just did it, so I'm going to rewrite it a little bit prettier, right? It would be negative sine x e to the x plus cosine x e to the x. And if you look here, we're going to set this equal to 0 to find critical points. In order to set it equal to 0, I can't solve for x, so I'm going to factor out what's common, and that's going to enable me, hopefully, to solve for x. Now, e to the x, when I set that equal to 0, no bueno, right? That can never be equal to 0. So then I set this other guy equal to 0. Okay. And if I do that, and I just add that sign over, it would be equal to 0 whenever sine x was equal to cosine x, all right? So when are sine and cosine equal to the same thing? It should be ding, 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 right? It should be. You should say, oh, they're definitely equal to each other at a 45s. And they're definitely equal to each other in the first and third quadrants because that's when they have the same sign. So, absolute minimum value, y value. But I've got to do my table of values, remember, it's always for that justified part. F of x stands for that y value. Your possibilities are your endpoints and your two critical points, which are pi over 4, that's 45 degrees, and then all the way in that third quadrant, which would be 5 pi over 4. And remember, I have to plug all of these into the original. And if I do that, I get 1. I get 1 over radical 2 e to the pi over 4. I get negative 1 over radical 2 e to the 5 pi over 4. And I get e to the 2 pi. Boy, should it be obvious what the answer is? I only have one negative, and that'd be the minimum. Make sure you answer the question, though. They asked for the minimum value, and it would be negative 1 radical 2, or negative root 2 over 2, right? E to the 5 pi over 4. Okay, and there you don't have to use 1 over radical 2. That's like the fancy way. It's really root 2 over 2. if we're really familiar with the unit circle. Okay, guys? All right, here we go. I think there is a part D, and there was a reason why I didn't have that graph. That I should have trusted myself, right? We don't need that graph until this piece right now. Okay, let G be the differentiable function such that G of pi over 2 equals 0. The graph of G prime, the derivative of G is shown below. Find the value of the limit as x approaches pi over 2 of f of x over g of x, or state that it does not exist. Justify your answer. Okay, so it's a limit. What is the first step in limits? The first step when we do limits is to direct sub, right? So I've got to show all of this work. I'm going to direct sub. It's f of pi over 2 over g of pi over 2. Well, f of pi over 2 is 0. G of pi over 2 they gave you is 0. Check, check! LHOP, right? You immediately should think LHOP. Now remember, it is so important now in today's AP exam that you have to show that you are splitting this up into a numerator only problem and a denominator only problem. Now, I didn't know it was going to be an LHOP, but that equals 0 over 0. And then you got to tell the AP grader, I'm using LHOP, right? I'm using L'Hopital's rule, the hospital's rule, if you forget how to spell it. The hospitals, L'Hopital, I almost always spell it wrong. You got that S, it's like hospital, okay? But we're using L'Hopital's rule. Now, what's L'Hopital's rule? And you got to say when you're doing it. I get 0 over 0, I'm going to LHOP it. So here we go. What do? Well, we take derivatives, okay? And I'm going to take the derivative of the top, which we've already done. It's negative sine x e to the x plus cosine x e to the x. And then I'm going to take the derivative of the bottom. And remember, I'm going to split it up into a bottom only and top only to save time. And what do I get? I get g prime of x. Okay, so now I'm going to use direct sub. And if I use direct sub in the numerator, I get negative e to the pi over 2. And the denominator, I get g prime of pi over 2. And I'm already not going to get 0 over 0 because the top gave me a sweet, cool answer, right? And g prime of pi over 2, what's g prime? This is g prime. So g prime of pi over 2, oh, totally not there. Totally right there is equal to 2. So my answer is just this. So this was a total rando question and a rando problem. And they just threw out, sprinkle, sprinkle, a little LHOP at the very end. That was worth 3 points. Okay, that was worth 3 points. And they do want you to show, remember, whenever you LHOP that bad boy, that you're splitting it up into a numerator specific limit and a denominator specific limit. Then after you get 0 over 0, make sure you tell that AP grader you're LHOPing it. Even do one of those in the room. Tell the AP grader, I need to LHOP it. All right, here we go. Number 6. Pause it. Whew, we got a table. We got a graph. This is totally rando. But random does not mean tough. Okay, it means you're going to use a lot of the stuff you learned all the way throughout AP Calc. So let's get it. All right, so we have a function up here. It's got a lot of trig in it. Oh no, let's attack it. All right, find the slope of the line tangent to the graph of f at x equals pi. Well, slope means derivative. So we're going to take the derivative. All right, cosine of 2x. That is a chain rule. Don't you dare touch the inside, but then multiply it by the derivative of the inside. Derivative of that guy, e to the sine x. That's a chain rule. Take the derivative of e, which is e to the something. Don't touch it. But then you got to take the derivative of the something. If you did all of that correctly, you got a point. Okay, now we're going to plug in a pi. All right, this would be negative sine of 2 pi, which zeroes that out. Okay, now sine of pi up here, sine of pi, well, that's going to be 0, but that's okay because it's e to the 0. And then cosine of pi would be negative 1. So I get an answer of 0 plus a negative 1, which is negative ichiban. See, so not bad, right? Not bad. It's just random. They're going to test us on some random concepts of AP Calc. That right there was a derivative, and it had a double chain, right? You got to do the chain for the cosine, the chain for the e. All right, part B. Let k be the function defined by. Find k prime. All right. Man, does this question love the chain rule. All right, so k prime of x equals. Now it's in function notation, so that's what they're seeing if you know what to do here. I obviously have an inside. The outside is h. So you take the derivative of h. Don't you dare touch the inside, but then you have to take the derivative of the inside. And then you really should take the derivative of x, which is ichiban, right? And then what's k prime of pi? Do you get a point for finding that derivative? You sure do. All right, so then this would be h prime. This is just, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, right? That's all this is right here. All right, so I'm going to do f of pi first, right? That's please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So what am I going to use here? Oh, I'm going to use that up there. F of pi, well, that'd be 2 pi, cosine of 2 pi, which would be 1. And then, so f of pi would be cosine of 2 pi, which is 1, plus e of pi, e of sine of pi, which would be 0. So I get 2 as my answer for that. Okay, and then f prime of pi, darn it, I already erased it, but h prime of 2, this is the graph of h. So h prime of 2, 2 is right here. That's the graph of h, so that would be the slope, which is down 1 over 3, so that'd be negative 1/3. Okay, if I plug this into the derivative, and I erased it, but just take my word for it, you're going to get an answer of -1 KKs. And if I do that, I get 1/3 as my answer. And you would get 1 point for finding the derivative using the chain rule appropriately, and then 1 point for getting 1/3. Okay, which means that's only 4 out of the 9 points, which means the next two questions will be valued a little bit higher. Okay, let m be the function defined by. Once again, they're trying to drive me crazy here with this derivative stuff. This here looks like 100% a product rule. So let's find m prime of x, which would be a u times a v, which is you rewrite the u down. You take the derivative of v, which would be h prime of x, chain x, which is just 1, plus v, which is h of x, times the derivative of g, which is a chain. You got an outside and you do have an inside. So it would be g prime of, don't you dare touch the negative 2x, but then take the derivative of -2. Sorry, I'm in the way, but now we do m prime of 2, which would be g of -4, h prime of 2, plus h of 2. I'm going to bring this -2 out in front, g prime of -4. Okay, and then I'm assuming I'm just going to use some tables and the graph to get the answers. What's g of -4? Oh, sweet! They just give me a table. There's -4. G is 5. Okay, h prime of 2. We already did that, which was -1/3, right? Ooh, I want to check to make sure I got it right. Sweetie sweets. H of 2. H of 2 is just whatever it is on the graph, so that'd be a -1. But then it'd be -2 times g prime of 4. G prime of 4 is -1. So that's what I get. So I get -5/3. That's going to be a +1, which is 3 over 3, which is -2/3. Oh snap! It looks like, oh gosh darn it! It would be this. And then it would be times this stuff, right, you guys? So times this stuff. So that'd be a 2 times 8. It'd be 2 times -1, which would actually be a -2, right? Which would be a 3 over 6. Oh my gosh, I don't even think that answer works out. Hang on 1 second. Let's double check my math. I just noticed I finished that problem and I had it paused. Holy shamoly. All right, here we go. All right, that means I got to redo this thing over again. H prime of x is equal to, I'm going to look here at my board here because I already did it with you guys, right? Times h prime of x, all right? And then it would be plus, right? Your v times, this would be a chain, right? So it'd be g prime, don't you dare touch, and then multiply it by -2. All right, so h prime of, what is it, of 2 is equal to g of -4 times h prime of 2 plus h of 2 times g prime of -4, and then you still have a -2. Boy, is this a lot of work. G of -4. G of -4 is 5. Cinco. H prime of 2. We already did h prime of 2. It's down 1 over 3, which is -1/3. okay, plus, what's h of 2? H of 2, you guys, this could be really tricky. And this is where, if you notice, before I paused, I did h of 3. Shame on me. They're making this tough. That guy right there. Now, you can find the equation of this line, right? The equation of this line is you're at 0, and then you go down 1 over 3, right? So there you go. There's the equation of that line. So at 2, h of 2 would be negative 2/3. G prime of negative 4 is negative 1. And then you got a negative 2. So that would be 5, negative 5/3. 3 negatives makes a negative. Boy, negative 9/3. Boom. Good thing is, you get 2 points for finding the derivative correct. You get 1 point for doing all of that crazy algebra where you'd have to get that slope was negative 1/3, which helps you in 2 instances in that case. All right, part D. Is there a number C in the closed interval such that G prime, oh my gosh, this screams MVT. And if it screams MVT, what have I taught you to do in class? Write out the MVT since G is continuous on the closed and differentiable on the open, closed, and differentiable on the open, which means they had to say somewhere that it was differentiable. G is a differentiable function. So since G is continuous and differentiable, remember, we know it's continuous because if it's differentiable, it implies continuity. The MVT, have this dude memorized, guarantees a value C, right? C, such that, what's the formula? Well, the formula is that G of negative 3 minus G of negative 5 all over negative 3 minus negative 5 equals negative 4. Boom! That's all you got to do. Then you just got to do the math. What's G of negative 3? There's negative 3. G of negative 3 is 2. Okay. What's G of negative 5? G of negative 5 is 10. Okay. Over negative 3 plus, that'd be 2. That'd be negative 8 over 2. That'd be negative 4. Booyah, booyah, check. You can't put anything past me, AP exam. Woo, that was a little sprinkles of randos all over the place in that problem, right? We never know what to expect. That's why when you guys are at home, do as many extra free response questions as you can possibly do, because not only will it help you out in the free responses, it will help you out in the multiple choices. Aloha.